to say how happy I am to be here with you. This update will only take a minute, I promise. But I just wanted to express to you how happy I am to be here and to spend time with you. Truly, because like 6 months or so ago, basically I was just feeling uninspired, a little discouraged, and a little burnt out. And noticing that and kind of reassessing from there was so helpful to me in terms of reorienting myself to do what I most want to do, which is to come to these videos with my most joyful, calm, balanced self. That is what I hope to do. And I feel like I have entered a place that is a bit more aligned with that, and it's been really fun. So I hope that comes across to you, that I truly, really enjoy being here. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to talk about is that I was walking with the person I live with and our dog the other day, and on the way home I noticed on someone's porch a little like goose sculpture. I don't know why I'm going like this. It was much bigger than this, but a little goose sculpture. And I was like, oh my god, babe, I just remembered something that I have not thought about in years. And I was like, you'll never believe me. Because the person I live with is native to where we are currently, and I am not. I am a Midwesterner. I'm from Illinois. I did the N wrong. Illinois. So, I was like, listen, you're gonna think this is so funny, but I just remembered this. When I was a kid, in our neighborhood, which had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 18 houses. Probably at least 6 houses had a goose statue on their front porch. And they would have outfits for this goose statue. They would dress it up in a rain jacket when it was raining, and when it stopped raining, they would take off the rain jacket. Around Halloween, would say at least a dozen outfits, which you could buy at a store downtown in our little downtown. You could buy these goose outfits. Amazing, right? You could also buy them at the craft fair during our annual festival that we had. I'm from a very small town. And the person I live with was like, what in the actual F are you talking about? That sounds insane. And it does. And I was just like cracking up to myself, just like I felt like I was in a fever dream. I haven't lived in that place for years, for more than 10 years. I was like, whoa, what a flashback. So then I get home and I call my mom and my sister. I'm like, do you guys remember this though? And they're like, yeah, we remember it. Oh, well. And I was like, what was the origin of it? And they didn't know. So I looked it up. And there's actually like an Atlantic article about it. About these goose statues that are very popular in the Midwest. And there was a sitcom I didn't watch called The Middles, I think. And they feature in that, for example, just as like a set decoration. But this article really gets in depth, and I found it fascinating. And it made a lot of good points. But the thing I'll mention here that I found very interesting is that the writer who was writing it, the writer who was writing the written thing, the writer who was writing it, the builder who built the building, like what am I saying? They did some research. And I guess there are historians and like anthropologists or sociologists who have written articles on lawn ornamentation in the United States. Very cool field of study, actually. Genuinely, I think that is, I just be like, I might make one up, like Samantha Hall or something. I haven't thought of her name in 10 plus years, and these words are said to me, or like this image of this goose comes to me, and I just get flooded with memories. I can like remember which classes I shared with her and what interactions we had and stuff. We were never close friends, but like she's still this like archetype for me because she was a feature or a person or whatever of my upbringing, and I'm from a very small town. Anyway, I made up that name, but I saw that goose and I was just like, I don't know why this person has this goose, because we are not in the Midwest. There are no farms. Farming is not really a thing in the same way here, and it just cracked me up to remember. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about, I'll get to. There's actually kind of a segue to it. The second thing is about words, specifically wordle. I'll just out it. It's about wordle. I would love to talk to you about wordle, so I'm going to. I'll do some like letter tracing here if you want. The segue is being from the Midwest. I went to school elsewhere. I didn't think I ever had an accent until I went to school elsewhere. I'm trying to get a mint without making too much noise. Okay. And I realized I had a little bit of an accent, which is no big deal. But there were ways that I spoke to that I didn't realize were particular to the Midwest. Like, I remember I used to say, I have bought in a new pair of pants or something like that. I don't even really know how to use it anymore because I stopped using it when I moved away. But I was somewhere walking at this language program, and my good friend who was teaching, we were TAs, kind of thing, more or less, whatever, doesn't matter. We're walking. I said like, oh, like blah blah blah, bought in, have, you know, and then bought in, when it should be have bought. And he pointed it out, and he was actually really great. His name was Alex. I really liked him. He was just a good guy. And he was like, oh, it's so interesting that you say that. He was so neutral about it, so non-judgmental. He was just observing, which I really value in people. I was like, it's so interesting that you say that. It, you know, I never heard it that way growing up, and I believe it's not standard, and it's just interesting, and it had never been pointed out to me before. And I was pretty confident at that age and like pretty secure, so it didn't bother me. I wasn't embarrassed. But all the same, once I realized it was not standard, I kind of phased it out. Not even really consciously, but I did. Or I remember seeing the word comparable, which is correct, by the way. But someone else at my school, which was a good school, and people were, it was uncommon to have gone to a public high school where I went to college. And so I said comparable, which is correct. But somebody else I heard say shortly thereafter comparable, also correct. And I was like, comparable sounds so much fancier, so I started to say comparable. And again, I wasn't like, I didn't feel inferior, but I just became aware of these things I hadn't noticed before. And some of them I've moved back. It's just ever shifting, right? One other example in and of itself. If a letter is in the correct place, it's green. If you guess one of the letters but it's in the wrong place, it's yellow. And you work your way down. I play on hard mode, which means that once you get a letter yellow or green, you need to use it in the next guess. You can't just dip out and do a random word. So, the New York Times did this whole thing about it, and some people start with vowel-heavy words like adieu, adieu, and canoe, 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 and I don't know what else. My friend, I just found out, does one with not 4 vowels, like adieu, adieu, my French, but with 3 vowels. She does arise, arise, which is also just a nice word, arise. I find myself starting with words that I like the feel of, and I switch it up a bit. I switched it up a lot in the beginning, and then I probably 95% of the time now start with stone. So I don't go consonant heavy, like only one consonant. I have 2 consonants. I have an O and an E, and I like the placement of the E at the end of the word. And then I have what I find to be, I don't read the stats, like actual stats are kind of boring to me, of like frequency of appearances of blah blah blah. I just go by feel. So I just feel like S is a super common consonant, so is D, so is N, so that's what I do. Occasionally I will mix it up and do crane, just another word that I like. Crane. Like the person I live with did meats one day. I was like, that's an interesting one to start with, but I would rather do it as steam, for example, because I like the feel of that better. It's just a nicer word to start with. I had a very good, what do you call it? Streak for a while, but then it's nice that these are quick little games. Quick little games. Quick little games. So, thank you for joining me for this ramble with some air play. My little mint, my necklace, this gorgeous candle in the background. Like, the whole team came out